Ting Yuan is back! Ruan Mei has entered the Law Fu, the Godslayer protocol, being spearheaded by Jing Liu and Locha. Jin Yuan playing 4D chess the whole time. Not that we needed confirmation, but Feixiao, I mean, come on, she's an Emanator of the Hunt, right? And she plans to kill a Lord Ravager, and so much more we have to unpack. This quest contained a lot more lore than I was expecting. Like I thought, it wrapped up the whole Borisin and Hulei storyline, but it left us with so much more interesting breadcrumbs. So let's go over the whole story quest, and let's break down everything we saw. The quest starts out exactly how you'd expect it to. Jing Yuan, Ling Sha, and Dong Heng are investigating the shackling prison, which all three seem to put together that there's obviously been some inside help from this entire Borisin jailbreak with Hulei, which was later revealed to be the Vidyadhara, the draconic long-life species that reside mainly within the Xianzhou Alliance. All descendants from Long, the Eon of Permanence that's now said to be deceased. Jin Yuan always expected that there was some inside work going on with the whole Fantilia incident, and that there were still people among the Alliance within. So this whole jailbreak allowed him to effectively flush out anyone he needed to, and it worked perfectly. And Ling Sha, being from the draconic race herself, suspected maybe the Vidyadhara and their dwindling population for the last little while might have actually incentivized Fantilia to attack the Law Fu. Hulei effectively tries to wear down Xiao Chao, gain information about Feixiao. Xiao Chao also has that funny line with Muktuk talking about making a child that's fussy try to eat green peppers. It's kind of funny because I have a 3-year-old, so I'm always trying to mix in vegetables with his mashed potatoes and things like that because he won't eat his vegetables. But it's just a funny little bit that later pays off. Obviously, Muktuk and Hulei are trying to wear him down and gain intel on the renowned Merlin's Claw, Feixiao. Feixiao easily uncovering some hidden Borisin, letting one escape, and honestly, everything about Feixiao resembles the Hunt to a T. We're gonna get into that in a second. But she describes that there's more than just fighting. And you gotta remember, out of all the generals, she's relentlessly hunted down the denizens of abundance unmercifully. So she knows how they all think, how to track them down. And her and Hulei are basically trying to set each other up. Hulei explains that the Moon Rage is going to get the best of Feixiao eventually. Just a brief history lesson for those of you that might forget or maybe are not aware of this, but the Borisin and the Foxians shared a home planet long ago. So despite them being two different races, they have a lot of common ancestry and share a lot of the same bloodlines. The Borisin are supposed to resemble wolves, but not just any wolves, werewolves, which really makes them the more primal version of the Hunt in a weird way, but also associated with the denizens of abundance. And because of the abundance, their home planet got overpopulated and all the resources dried up, meaning the Foxians and the Borisin had to leave their home planet. The Borisin evolved and became space-conquering pirates, seeing the Foxians as cannon fodder and basically committed atrocities to them. And the Foxians eventually sought refuge among the Alliance and became a part of it, a big part of the Alliance. But on each different flagship, the Foxians have also evolved over the years in different ways. And on Feixiao's flagship, the Foxians have very close ties and bloodlines with the Borisin, more than any other flagship. And Feixiao especially was a war prisoner among the Borisin, but she escaped, and she was inflicted with this Moon Rage, which gives her insane power, but also means it might consume her someday. That is what he's referring to. The Borisin have embraced this Moon Rage, but Feixiao has been trying to cure it all of last quest. We also learn that Hulei's plan is to actually weaponize all the Foxians on the Law Fu by this Moon Rage. Because they share a similar ancestry, they'll be able to turn the Foxians into Borisin. Muzo also warns Feixiao of this. Then we have to track down all the Borisin. Also, that little line about Muktuk referring to Feixiao as a mutt, that is another nod to her being basically a half-breed, having such close bloodlines with Borisin and Borisin blood, but also being a Foxian at the same time. That is why he calls her Mutt. Also, I love the fact that we split up to take on the Borisin and she mops the floor with them, then takes Yao Khan's bow and literally fires off a freaking nuke that just eradicates all the Borisin we're dealing with, like, way off on the other side of the Law Fu. Also, it was super refreshing to finally get to put an end to Muktuk. This guy's a piece of work, but funny enough about this character, I already mentioned this when I reviewed 2.4 Quest, but the voice actor that actually voices Muktuk, it's the same voice actor that plays Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, Inosuke from Demon Slayer, or Meliodas from Seven Deadly Sins, to name a few. Just something to note if you didn't notice it. Hulei's plan was to abduct the War Dance ship, but this was all planned and premeditated by the Arbiter Generals. Like I said, Jin Yuan had all of this planned out, and all of the spectators at the War Dance were actually Cloud Knights ready to go. Now Hulei, that still has Xiao Chao captured, wounds him badly, and Xiao Chao is a smart guy. He's a healer, but he's also done a lot of research on Borisin, and he knows that a tradition of the Borisin is to drink the blood of their enemies or their prey. So what does Xiao Chao do? He drinks poison that will go into his bloodstream, just like his little joke earlier about the kids eating green peppers. But he knew this was going to happen, so he made sure his blood was poisoned so that when Hulei drank his blood, it would impair him during the final battle, which it does, and definitely gives us the edge. Obviously, we know this left him blind in the end, but I guess a small price to pay considering he got to live. Then we have a really interesting flashback with a young Feixiao who had fought in the war already, and Xiao Chao, who is healing her. She requests if he could heal her moon rage, and he says, "What for? You're just gonna go rush out there to die and back in battle anyway. That this war is endless. It's going to keep happening. It's been happening for over 1,000 years, and it's only going to continue." So he's like, "You can't cure the war. So all you're going to achieve is eventually killing yourself." So she basically flips it around on him and says, "Well, you heal people non-stop. We're all gonna die anyway someday, what's the point? But we keep fighting anyway. And the people that have died in war, it's not in vain." And then as Yao Qing gets the final blow, Hulei has a little flashback to Jingliu getting the final blow on him back in the day, from over 700 years ago, being that she was the one that had him locked up in the first place. Hulei then reveals his grand plan, to throw all the Foxians into madness through their fear and craving for slaughter. Like I said, they all share a similar bloodline. So he rips the Crimson Moon out of his chest and plants it in the sky. And in order to protect all the Foxians on the Lop Fu, and prevent total catastrophe and chaos, the Merlin's Claw swallows it herself and absorbs it, taking on the Moon Rage herself. Then we're forced to actually fight Feixiao as it's consuming her, and she's fighting a battle internally. Hulei then reveals that his whole plan was to actually use and weaponize Feixiao, and that they are cut from the same cloth. They're one and the same. They live for the hunt. They embody the hunt. And although they're mortal enemies, nobody will understand Feixiao like Hulei does, on a deeper level. I also love how Hulei finds it disgusting that the Borisin, instead of just becoming strong and claiming their own destinies, they more or less just cower in the shadows and hope to free him so that he can basically bail them out and bring them back to glory. He thinks that's absolutely disgusting. Like nobody else took the mantle after 700 years? And whoever gave them this prophecy of Doran, basically he says has been manipulating the Borisin, and they've all become more or less puppets, which he refuses to do. We then get Feixiao's backstory a little bit and how she was a war prisoner. And they have this interesting line about how the gods never answer them. That's why they have this fierce massacre and battle to this day. Cutting back quickly actually to the Dragon Elder, he says something similar when he's trying to justify why he betrayed the Alliance and sided with Fantilia and is trying to bring the dragons back to glory. He states that even if the denizens of abundance have been all eradicated and all wiped out, who's going to be left to fight? The Xianzhou Alliance would basically become the denizens of abundance again. What he's basically referring to is that the eons are flawed, all of them, because the eons are just an over-exaggeration or an obsession over a metaphysical path. And that metaphysical path or ideal just manifests into a god or an eon, really. And the eons embody that path or ideal wholeheartedly, unbiasedly, without question. It doesn't matter if it's for good or evil. It really doesn't. And if the denizens of abundance cease to exist, the hunt will still have to hunt. That is essentially what he's saying. We would become the enemy then. We are the bad guy. Because the abundance creates and gives life abundantly, no matter what, all the time, full rip, full tilt, there's no end to it. But if it ceased to exist, the hunt will hunt for the sake of hunting to the end of time. The hunt never ends. because that is what Lawn of the Hunt is. The hunt. That is essentially the flaw of all the eons and why they're an obsession over a path. I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole, and I do plan on talking about that in other videos, but that is essentially a little cryptic line of what he's saying there, which really tied into what Feixiao and Hulei were talking about. Like, we're always going to massacre each other, and we're always going to fight because the gods never answer us. So we fight. Lawn of the Hunt was only created and born out of their hatred for the abundance, and it's still going on to this day. The followers of each eon just keep fighting. So Hulei wants to weaponize Feixiao and have her become the new Hulei, leader of the Borisin, and basically corrupt her and take over her. And then we get the coolest part of the entire quest, and basically what solidified for me that Feixiao is an emanator of the hunt. She calls out to the shooting star, which is obviously Lawn of the Hunt shooting his skybow, and they respond, acknowledging her, and she officially earns the gaze of Lawn, where an epic battle takes place in her consciousness, and Feixiao comes on top, defeating the urges of the Crimson Moon infliction in the Moon Rage, and Hulei being a fragment of that rage. Trying to persuade and corrupt her doesn't work, and she's able to snap out of it. Then, like we talked about, we get the Elder, who's basically outed for orchestrating a lot of the events we've seen with Phantilia, the Borisin, Hulei. I also love that he's like, oh, well, you can't spill blood in this sacred place. It's a rule among the Alliance, and Dong Heng's like, you know what? I haven't been part of the Alliance in years. I'm technically a nameless, so I'm going to absolutely slap you around, and he does. And then Jing Yuan, like an absolute Chad that he is basically like, yep, I planned all this, and Hulei's already defeated. And also, ever since Phantilia, I suspected there was more traitors among us, and I need to flush them out, so boom. Now Feixiao promised she would try and vow to cure his blindness, the same way he vowed to try to cure her moon rage. She's going to do that for him and pay that debt. However, she also said she's going to hunt down and kill a Lord Ravager, teach the Ruin Legion, the Antimatter Legion, the true meaning of the hunt. I mean, my god, if you needed more evidence that she's an Emanator. Her immense power, she wields every weapon type. She represents the hunt in both spirit, who she is as a general, but also her Borisin bloodline, the more traditional and instinctual version of the hunt, in every conceivable way. She resembles the hunt. I am going to cover this in multiple videos. I do have a video talking about all the potential Emanators in Honkai Star Rail that I am already working on, and I want to cover her in her own lore video. But yeah, because the Lord Ravagers and their plotting and scheming, the troubles that they cause the Alliance, she is going to kill a Lord Ravager. She's going to gather her knights and go slay a Lord Ravager, and that will be an epic battle. The Antimatter Legion and one of their Lord Ravagers versus the Arbiter General Feixiao, Emanator of the Hunt, and her Verdant Knights. That will be a spectacle to watch. Then we get some absolute lore drops, oh my goodness. Basically, the 3 Arbiter Generals get a phone call from a 4th Arbiter General. This 4th Arbiter General on the call tells them that Jingliu and Locha have been interrogated and wanted to be taken to Marshal Hu. And essentially, this Godslayer protocol is they're proposing a plan to kill Yaoshi of Abundance. Again, going back to what the Elder said about what happens if the Abundance cease to exist. They want to put an end to this war for good. They've been fighting for thousands of years, and there's gotta be an end. Personally, I agree, Yaoshi of Abundance needs to die. And the irony is that this Eon isn't really even a bad path. Like, in theory and on paper it sounds good. You give life abundantly to everyone, but it really does cause so much problems. And apparently a part of their plan requires them to use Locha's plan to use parts of his coffin to destroy Yaoshi. Interestingly about Locha, he bears an uncanny resemblance to the guy that was actually brought from Honkai Impact 3rd to Honkai Star Rail, along with Welt. For those of you unaware of this, Welt did not come to this game alone. He came with somebody known as Void Archives, who looks exactly like Locha. That's why a lot of people think they might be connected. And apparently the remnants in this coffin are the divine body parts of the propagation. So in other words, they want to weaponize Tazeroth's body, the Eon of Propagation that caused the Swarm disaster. They want to weaponize his divine body in hopes they can defeat Yaoshi of Abundance for good. Put this Eon out of its misery. Oh, we're talking about propagation? I wonder when Ruan Mei is gonna show up. You know, the person that revived and tried to recreate one of its emanators, Scaracabez, on the Herta space station, that's now a weekly boss. Oh yeah, she's actually here too. Genius Society number 81. And would you look at that, here she is. She arrives at the Luofu at this precise moment. And like we were told last patch, she had the body or the remains of Tin Yuan. Now it's unclear if she revived her or actually saved her before she died, but Tin Yuan's back. Ruan Mei was able to save her somehow. And honestly, I plan to talk about Ruan Mei quite a bit. I can't tell if this character wants to be an Emanator herself or become an Eon herself at this point. But Tin Yuan's back, and there's no doubt in my mind that Ruan Mei is going to be involved with this Godslayer project to finally take down the Denizens of Abundance and Yaoshi. Now, as for how Feixiao was able to actually withstand Hulei's heart, the Crimson Moon, and why Lawn of the Hunt actually answered her blessing and her prayer and not Hulei, because if you think about it, the Borisin actually do resemble the Hunt in a more primitive and instinctual way, and it's more savage, sort of like primitive roots. Wolves hunt in a pack, and they sort of embody the hunt naturally. And with this whole Crimson Moon, if it wasn't a big nail on the head with the whole werewolf gimmick, the blood moon, the full moon, you know, but I think Feixiao is able to withstand it because she's a perfect mix of both races. She revels in both. The Foxians are cunning and intelligent, while the Borisin are more savage and have insane power, and are more bloodthirsty. I think she truly embodied both of those sides, but also just embodies the hunt wholeheartedly in every aspect, not just the primitive hunting side of it, but the thinking that goes into it, the planning. And she has purpose, she has drive, and she's not consumed like the Borisin are. They have a very one-track mind. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up the video. We got a lot of new lore bits, and I'm excited to make more videos. I got my potential Emanators video in the works, as well as some others, so I do hope you're looking forward to that. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know how you like this quest and your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.